Hi everyone. Thank you for attending. I am calling in from Hong Kong, so a little early for me, but I am very excited, energetic, and thank you everyone for taking time and being here with us. So in the next 30 minutes, what I'm going to do is to share with you some of the learning that I have from the past 12 months, particular focus on crypto and token investment strategy. But to start, really quick introduction about myself. I am a partner at 500 Startups. I travel, I spent half of my time in the greater China region and half of my time in the US. And for some of you may or may not know, 500 Startups actually, even though now have invested in over 2,000 startups, obviously we have done really well with many amazing fiat unicorn. We also got the great honor to invest in companies like Omise, which later on turned into Omise Go. I actually invested in Lightyear, which is the equity companies of Stellar. And then also we have Unicorn, Simple Token, many other amazing crypto companies that have traded over $1 billion in our portfolios, and that's one of the reasons why that trigger us now wanting to do more token related investments. And so what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is to actually share with you why you need to care about token investments, some of the statistics, and then 13 things that we look for when we are looking at or evaluating token projects. But to start, I try to be funny in most of my talk, but I just really wanted to tell you that this is pure knowledge sharing. Please don't kill me. I don't want to go to jail, and I'm not a lawyer, not giving you any legal advice. ICO and crypto token investment are extremely risky and very, very high volatility if you have looked at the market in the last few weeks. And please do not invest in anything that you don't understand and cannot afford to lose. And plus, I think this cat is really, really cute. So I really want to share this with you guys. All right, so in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to share with you, and I just pulled this number this morning. So as of April 2018, and honestly, even this number for the total capitalization of cryptocurrency have changed, really even 30–40% in the last 2 weeks. And as of today, it's about $343 billion. Bitcoin, as of this morning, still make up of about 40% of the total market cap, about 138 billion. Initial coin offering, ICO, has exploded last year in popularity, at least 5 billion in funding in 2017 alone. And as I have checked this morning, there's over 1,500 tokens listed on over 10,000 crypto markets. That is pretty crazy. And if you would have invested $100 in Bitcoin in 2011, it will worth at least over $2.5 million today. So this is a really exciting, at the same time, super high volatility market asset class, if you're looking at it as a potential investment focus for yourself. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2017, 5 billion is being raised across about 800 blockchain projects, and versus equity investor deployed about $1 billion over 215 deals. I have to share with you that I focus on a lot of early stage investment, and many of the great projects or entrepreneurs been rather raise token than equity. Particular, a lot of Chinese and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs that I've been talking to, and that's one of the reasons why I have to pay a lot more attention in the crypto space. But what is really interesting, and by the way, I actually think that a lot of the deals that I'm looking at in Silicon Valley versus Asia is also quite different. I see a lot more B2C focused token project versus in Silicon Valley, I see a lot of token project that focus on developers. And of course, there are a lot of really interesting logistic, stable coin, and other healthcare related blockchain project that we are looking at. But majority, at over 60%, are consumer focused token. So before I go into the criteria that we look at in terms of evaluating the token project, I also want to set the stage is what kind of investor do you want to be? And these are the 8 questions just to even start if you're thinking about crypto or token projects that you should ask yourself. To start, why do you want to invest in token and why now? Last year was crazy in terms of return, but this year have actually gone down quite a bit. So why do you want to start investing now? And then what sort of focus in terms of categories of project you want to focus on and why? Is it infrastructure focus? Is it sector focus? Like I mentioned, healthcare, maybe logistics, supply chain, or consumer focus. There are a lot of gaming related and many really interesting marketplaces, even with real estate, which I have come across. How many investment do you want to do per year? What's your average check size? How soon do you want return? I think one of the things that is very exciting with crypto project is there's crypto exchanges, and some of the project that I got involved with last year, within less than a quarter, they got the chance to get listed on certain exchanges. Is that the reason why? Is that how soon you want to return, which is quite different from the fiat world? What's your expected return? Are you okay with 20 or 30%? Or are you really looking at 2x, 3x type return or even more? Where will your deal flow come from? Where are you located? Most of the blockchain projects are quite international. They do travel quite a bit into the US, but at the same time, many of these tokens actually don't even accept US investors. So you have to think about where your deal flow will then come from. And then at the end of the day, what kind of investor do you want to become? You definitely don't want to, seems like you're the one that all you care about is pump and dump and all is about money. You want to be the long term, that not only that you're going to be the one that invests in Ethereum and then immediately sell it. You want to be the one who bought into Ethereum and later on, got the chance to be 200x, 300x, which is really about holding it long term. But at the end of the day, I think I would really want all of us on this call, longer term, be a really trusted and committed and reliable investors. That's really what I want all of you guys to be, with high integrity. All right, now what I'm going to do is 13 things that we look for in a token project. And this is the long list of questions, and I'm going to go through these one by one. But don't worry about screenshot. We're happy to share this particular on SlideShare as well with all of you. So let's just start. What is the purpose of the project and token? I just think that this particular graphic of Jackie Chan is, why do you even exist? And that's the first question. There are plenty of shit coins out there. And this is a list of all the coins, from Kanye coin to Trump coin to insane coins. There are a lot of really strange coins that are out there, which really, many of these projects exist because all they want is to raise money. So usually the first question I ask many of these projects, why do you even want to have a token? So I want to caution many of you on this call, which many of these projects really shouldn't even exist. So the first question I ask is, why are you raising token, and what is this token really used for? So this is an example for Ethereum. Ether is the token which act as a fuel by operating the distributed application platform. So it's a form of payment within Ethereum, which is what Ether is for. This is another example. I'm super biased with Stellar because we not only hold token, but also hold as the equity owner of Stellar. So Lumen is a built-in currency for Stellar Network with 2 purposes. One is anti-spam, and then also facilitate as a multi-currency transaction and trade between pairs of currency. So Stellar Lumens act as a very specific function for the token within the network. So it's really, really key when you're evaluating a token project to be very specific and why this particular token even exists. And the reason for this is, if the particular token basically particularly smell pure like security token, which by the way, many of these crypto exchanges are getting more and more caution as well. If it's pure security token, they probably wouldn't list it anyway. So, which equal to you would not have liquidity. So think about, just be super careful. Ideally, for now, I'm not saying that there wouldn't be other laws that be more transparent of wanting to list security token, but most of these crypto to crypto exchange really be a lot more careful now and want to list utility token instead of pure security token. All right, number two, are there similar projects out there? Remember, I mentioned earlier, there are over 1,500 token project out there already. Unfortunately, there isn't like a App Annie or Apptopia or mobile action type. And if you look at CoinMarketCap today, if you just type in, let's say, I don't know, like a privacy token, it actually wouldn't tell you, oh, Zcash or Monero or Dash. It would just sort of, it wouldn't give you any results. So in order to do research on many of these projects, you do have to go to CoinDesk, Cointelegram, a lot of these sort of journal out there, just to do your own due diligence. Because if you're looking at a token project, the likelihood of similar project out there is very, very high. So why I even mentioned that is because if there is a privacy token, you would want to look at what are some of the big privacy token is already there and look at the historical performance. So if there's already some big guys there, the likelihood of another one that become very, very successful and be able to compete could be tougher for them. For example, lately I've been looking at a lot of scalability focused projects, and because there are at least 5 to 10 of these projects, the likelihood of one strike out, hopefully they do, but still there's definitely competition. So you just need to be aware and do your own research and look at what are the comparable that is out there. All right, number 3, I personally think this is really the most important question, is who are the teams, and are they truly crypto native or are they crypto want to be? As I mentioned, many projects out there really are there just to raise money. So they really don't understand, blockchain or cryptography. And you really wanted to ask a lot of questions just to make sure that, they really understand what blockchain is all about. And I feel like every time I started to do research on the team, I have to go through all these various different social channels, regardless is LinkedIn, Telegram, Facebook. If you on a lot of the Chinese project, I started to look at like Baidu, Youku, Tudou, QQ, WeChat, just to figure it out. Like, are these teams really for real and be around for a while? So I feel like I'm like CIA or something. But it's definitely super interesting to really look at the background of these teams. And if you're looking at technical team, we definitely look at like GitHub and the actual CTO or the main developers, how many commit that they have done, like how much have they contributed to open source to validate if this team is really valid and solid. And then this is one example. I'm advisor to the Nebulous projects, and I did a lot of research on Hidden Shoes, who's the founder and CEO, on a lot of the video he have done, things that he's talked about, Reddit, and just to see what sort of conversation that out there that he has contributed and about this community. All right, question number 4, does this blockchain solution really make sense? Do you really need a blockchain for this? I just think this is really funny. Many of the projects will come to us with a white paper. We'll take a look at the white paper and they all say it's awesome, and you realize many of them are copying other white paper. How do you know that they're copying? Well, it's really with experience come time that you realize, hey, I have seen this before. You definitely have to read a lot when you're evaluating these projects. But a lot of times when we look at the white paper, we want to understand the inner working of the protocol and the application these days, because many of these projects sort of address similar problem, let's say privacy or scalability. You really want the team to explain in the white paper the in and out of how the protocol works, some of the real application they have in their mind, and then especially explain how the token is being used within the system, developer roadmap, the design of the token, token allocation, a whole lot. These are things that we usually look for in a white paper. This is an example of a great white paper. Is still back to Bitcoin. And in fact, if you want some bedtime reading, this is a list of all the really good white papers that's out there you should read, from Omise to Stellar to Bitcoin Ethereum. They really have done a great job in explaining, how and why this particular protocol exists and how it works. All right, so question number 5, what is the quality of the code? I've been doing due diligence of a particular project, and this is the main contributor, Jen. He's one of the core, I think the only Ethereum contributor in China, and have a lot of commits, and Vitalik and many great developers also follow him. So definitely a great developers, and I'm looking through, and sometimes I ask for a lot of help from particular blockchain at Berkeley. I want to give them a shout out. I really love this group, and they're super technical and been helping and supporting 500 quite a bit on a lot of the technical due diligence. And then also I look at the developers documentation, and I shout out to Stellar. I think they have the best documentation out there, and wanted to simplify. And many of these protocol, public chain and protocol level, really want to see as many use cases as possible. So you wanted to let other developers to really easy to understand what you are all about and be able to start building on your protocol. Question number 6, do they have a strong community support? Well, many of us wanted to be cool, right? Do you have a lot of followers? And from Reddit to Telegram to Slack to Twitter to Dribble, anyway, sorry, not Dribble. These days, Dribble is more for designer. So mainly is Telegram, Twitter, GitHub in terms of how many developers do commit and contribute to open source. And these are some of the community that we look at. We also look at Reddit. So this is a neo example of a lot of the conversation, vote up and down, and the comments. What exactly do they actually talk about? Not just about the price and going up and down and trying to pump and dump. It's really about the technical discussion that we would like to see, that we're seeing a lot of passionate developers that really care about this particular protocol. And then also, we were doing a partnership actually with Huobi Labs earlier this year for our incubator with 500. And we actually did a test with Stella, and they were one of the supporter, and how 500 and Stella were looking for more Stella developers. And you can see this was kind of actually a really fun campaign that we did in February. And there's almost 200 retweets and over 500 likes. And so I can feel like the Stellar community is definitely super strong. Okay, number 7, what is the token allocation? And these are just example. Usually good project would be very, very clear on how much they allocate for community building longer term, how much go back to the team, and how much is for mining, and whatever the proceed that they raise, how are they going to spend? Is it to development, marketing, operation, legal costs? You need them to be super clear about how do they use the money that they raise, and then also a lot of times I want to have a better understanding to motivate me, right? So a lot of times what we have seen is certain type of discount or bonuses to motivate early investor to go in and to invest. And many of these project owners are also getting a little bit smarter. They don't want pump and dump. So they usually will request, hey, if we give you more, if you come in earlier, which means you get better discount, we will also request a longer term in terms of lockup. So to prevent any investor that are more short-term minded. Number 8, what is their milestone and timeline? I really wanted to be super clear when testnet mainnet is going to come. Definitely no project can guarantee ever when they're going to get listed. And if they say they're going to get listed, they have no control. And by the way, most of these exchanges hate project owners to say that. But usually last year it's been a lot more, I would say, aggressive in terms of listing. I have seen project get listed within 30 days after they um, they finish ICO. I think this year is no longer going to be the case. I think many of the project owner and exchanges are being a lot more responsible. So after testnet, and many of them won't list until after mainnet, and then issue token and then get listed on the exchange. But this is something that you just need to be super thoughtful about, because that will also equal to if you invest in something, you really would not be able to have any real gain until they get listed on the exchange. Number 9, what is the total target raise? What's the cap? Any lockup, as I mentioned earlier. If you are, if you don't want it to chase after money, like there are plenty of like crypto enthusiasts and investors that's out there. You want to really look at projects that are truly there to like build for longer term. And I will tell you a little bit of like this like scam alert later on as well. You really want to go after like solid project that many great investor is going after them. And then also you have to have a better understanding of the project itself. Has the team raised pre-sale or equity financing before? If so, at what terms? Are they just like purely just want money? And the reason why I bring up that question is because sometimes if they have raised equity before, you want to have a better understanding of how they treat the equity investor, because there's a couple of projects out there sort of because they cannot raise follow-on financing, that's why they're doing token raise, and that is a really bad sign. And also, what sort of term do they give their previous equity investor is important also, because you can see like the type of relationship that they have with their equity investors, and that's important for you to know. Three additional questions, and we're done with our talk, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Is question 11. Do you have any geographic restriction for the investor? If yes, in what country? I can tell you many world international projects do not accept Americans or Chinese investors, mainly due to the specific government tax and also KYC and AML laws. It is what it is, so which is unfortunate for many of the Americans and Chinese investors, but you just need to be aware so you're not wasting your time when you're evaluating projects. Question number 12, who else are investing and who are involved as investors and advisors? And yes, there's so much about social proof. And I would just caution, particularly with social proof, is that there are a lot of really great investors around the world that are the crypto hedge funds that have a really great reputation. And I found myself now, particularly with the sort of the crypto investor circle, is quite different, and definitely not the traditional tier 1 investor, not the Sequoia or Greylock or Benchmark in the world. In fact, I found myself talking to folks like Polychain, Pantera, Metastable, Block Tower. These are like sort of US. And then in China, the FBG in blockchain from Bushi, a really different group of people in terms of social proof of crypto investors. And around the world, there are many great crypto angel investors as well, which is quite different from the traditional fiat world. So you do want to find out like who are some of the active crypto investors that are already invested in these projects. The final question you need to ask is, do they have all the financial and legal documentation ready to go? And especially just be super clear on all these financial and legal stuff. There are many crypto and ICO projects have take the money and go. So you wanted to understand their KYC policy, what sort of currency do they accept. There are many great US projects now, not only take BTC and Ether, they definitely take US dollar. Be super clear on any lockup, bonuses, discount program, clear timeline. If there's lockup, when does the lockup actually start? Are they doing geofencing? What's the minimal or maximal token investment that you can do? Are they doing SAF? And are they set up a foundation? And what's the location of all these legal entity? And by the way, we're going to do a Q&A, but I am not a lawyer, so I don't want to give you any legal advice, but certainly like we're seeing more and more Singapore foundations, although a lot of the US project now are also being careful not setting up any foundation outside the US just because like longer term, they don't want to get into trouble either. All right, a few things, a scam alert. I usually, celebrity advisors and endorsements scares me. And sometimes I see more advisors than team members, also really strange. If they ask you for any private information over email or Twitter, or you also notice there's a lot of fake websites, you definitely want to be super careful when you see things like this and just run away and as far away as possible. With that, just to recap, the 13 things that we look for in a token project, the purpose for the token, do competitive analysis. I think team at the end of the day is the most important. Technology, does this project even like does it even make sense? What's the quality of the code? How strong is the community? Token allocation, milestone for the project timeline. On the financial part, target raise, cap, lockup. Have they done any pre-sale or equity financing before? Any geography restriction, social proof, and then legal and financial setup. So with that, I absolutely believe the future of blockchain, I think, is a really exciting technology and data architecture that many industries should pay attention to. I still think that crypto future is super bright. This is Julian Fat, very famous Hong Kong movie stars. And this is my contact information. And a quick plug of my newsletter. I do a weekly, come out every Monday, PST, 7 a.m. on all the funding and M&A activities for Silicon Valley that come out every Monday. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic back to Patrick and see if anyone have any questions.
Thank you, Edith. So that was a lot of information, and just for everyone's clarification, we will be sending out a recording of the entire presentation to all those that are participating. And with that, we'll get to questions. And the first one that I'll ask you, Edith, comes from Arun. And the question is, do you invest in these projects, startups like any other person would do in an ICO? Or do you invest like a traditional venture capitalist would? So for example, real dollars against equity or real dollars against tokens?
So to answer this question is yes for both. 500 recently amended one of our funds, so we have the ability to invest in token as well. So again, I think this particular question really depends. At the end of the day, 500 is here to support great entrepreneurs and great projects. And we want to make ourselves as flexible as possible. So we definitely do both. But then again, the decision to invest in equity versus token, if a particular project have both offering, it really depends the nature of the token. And again, like these 13 questions that I just addressed on what we look for in a token, it definitely have to have a lot of things for us to consider when we do end up investing in the token projects.
Great. And the next question we have is from Shiva, and it's regulators can help or hurt the token economy. What is your view on which regulatory authorities are pro-token and which are not?
This is a great question. I think that, again, my disclaimer is I am not a lawyer. I don't want to go to jail. Having said that, what is super interesting to me is in the past week, I've been studying and literally learning about the crypto exchange environment around the world. I would say Japan for now is the one country have the very, very clear policy and regulation around crypto exchanges. I was talking to actually a regulator, and they were telling me that there's over 100 crypto exchanges actually on the waiting list for the Japanese government to approve. And certainly in the US, there are many crypto to crypto exchanges There's only really a few that actually have money transmitter licenses in the US, like Coinbase. I believe Gemini also have a money transmitter license. And these sort of licenses take years to get, because it's, in the US it's state by state, versus in China is definitely banned right now. There's no, even though there are many great crypto to crypto exchanges like Huobi, OKEX, Binance are all Chinese, but they are, their actual legal entity is not in China. And obviously there's a great crypto to crypto exchange in Korea as well. But I think right now worldwide it's not clear. And I can tell you China for sure is banned. And Japan seems like it's the most friendly. And I think that as we are being, as you guys know, 500 is, we have a big team in the US. We wanted to be, we do not at all advise any ICO whatsoever. We do not have broker dealer license. We invest in token and we are a VC. So we wanted to, every single token project, what we end up is we work really, really closely with our legal team just to make sure that we are completely in compliance. So that's all I can say.
Let me unmute myself. So here's a question from Rachel. So she is curious to know, well, she understands that it's good to create an exceptional white paper on the use of blockchain protocols within a new project. However, to which detail should be safe while protecting the development of a project? So how do you make that balanced decision?
That is a great question. I think in general, if your blockchain project, which by the way, I want to emphasize that you could be a great blockchain project and not necessarily have to raise token at all. There are many projects that 500s and my partners have been reviewing that are more enterprise use cases for banks, for logistics, that really shouldn't raise token, because the minute that you raise token and with a horizon that you may get listed on a crypto exchange someday, a lot of your token holder will expect you to be as transparent and maybe even expect some of your source code to be completely open source. If you look at Ethereum, Stellar, a lot of Bitcoin, all these code base are completely on GitHub and open source. So if some of you are thinking you need to protect your IP, you want to be super careful and not worry about that, I would suggest maybe you shouldn't raise token, because the expectation of your token holder is have that expectation. You need to be transparent. So again, I think transparency is really what crypto, actually the very beginning of blockchain, the first great use case is Bitcoin and is about transparency. So I think that is a question that you need to ask yourself. Would you want that at all? And if not, probably maybe really think through, maybe you should raise sort of equity financing rather than thinking about token.
Great. Here's a question from Co, and the question is, it takes a really long time. It takes longer than normal startups to actually start having returns and impacting society in terms of Bitcoin and token. So what kind of investor does it make sense to actually participate in this? Does it make sense for casual investors, or who should really focus on these types of investments?
For those of you who are on the webinar that are individuals and really just wanted to learn, I had to say, I started learning because I got the chance to invest in these equities style Stellar. This is when our fund still cannot invest in token. This is 12 months ago. And I got really intrigued because Stellar was doing really well, and I started to invest on my own just to learn. And I have to say, it's really complicated. Many of these crypto to crypto exchange, when I say crypto to crypto exchange, that means they do not take US dollar at all, which means that you have to find your own way. And for the US side, of the house, you can use US dollar to Bitcoin or Ethereum via Coinbase. And once you get that, you transfer these Bitcoin or Ethereum to different crypto to crypto exchanges to purchase what we call in the industry, we call altcoins, to be able to even buy some of these tokens. And that process is really complicated. And sometimes it's even scary because it's a really, really, really long private key. You send it to this place and sometimes nothing happened for a few minutes. And you really worry, where did my money go? When it appears in these crypto exchanges, then you start trading, you can start buying. And then, by the way, there's a lot of security problem these days. And we certainly have seen some not so good news on certain exchanges. They get hacked and your money disappeared. And it gone to the whole can of worm of what we call cold storage, custodianship. Me personally, I buy these Ledger X, some of these hardware wallet, and you transfer to your cold storage. There's a lot of know-how and really complicated way if you do it individually. And it's been a great learning for me personally, but it's just a lot of work. So if you are not in it, really wanted to learn how all these things work, I feel like right now, this particular industry, this asset class is quite complicated for if you want to get into it. But at the same time, it's definitely super fascinating, really exciting space to be in.
Great. All right, I'm going to combine some questions that are overlapping. So how can you be a little bit specific about your valuation process, and how have you strategized to invest in genuine token investments based on crypto winters and things like that?
Just to start to address crypto winter, I was 2 weeks ago when Ethereum was below 400. A lot of folks were saying this is crypto winter, and Bitcoin 2 weeks ago was around 6,000, 7,000, and right now I think today is a little over 8,000. And if you think about this, even within 2 weeks, is 25% increase in value. And compared, sure, in December it was 20,000. It seems like it have dropped quite a bit, but overall, I think in terms of volatility and increase, literally things can change overnight. Me personally, I'm fascinated by this space. At the same time, I'm also still a responsible fund manager that I'm trying to control my emotion and not get too excited or depressed whenever things that go up and down, because this is actually by nature how crypto works. So I would suggest, I don't want to give any financial or legal advice. Me personally, is to invest in project that you truly believe in. You're not going to get scared just because today it dropped 25%, which, by the way, it happens all the time. And it's not particular because one token is doing bad, the whole market is doing bad, and you really have very little control. If you're worried about the overall, like we all worry, so I definitely would not, please do not borrow against your credit card or mortgage your house to do any of these investments because it's super risky. You just have to accept the fact that this is how crypto gonna be. So if you still decide this is something that you wanted to go into, I would say right now, my focus has been more scalability type, infrastructure type project, means scalability, privacy, security. These are the projects that I've been focusing more on. I can tell you next quarter, I definitely would not, because I already have enough allocation for a particular category of projects. And there are already some really, really great projects addressing a particular issue for infrastructure. So I think that it's good for every single one of us on this webinar is to think about what kind of unfair advantage do you have as an individual in terms of technical know-how and industry or vertical. let's say you are an amazing privacy expert. You really understand what is missing in the privacy space. So you have certain thesis that you think is this three things need to exist in the world. You obviously will be a much well qualified privacy focused investor than I am. Or you are a healthcare expert and you really are been looking for certain healthcare compliance protocol that you think you need to exist. So in that case, please reach out to me. I want to learn too. So I think at the end of the day, it's really about your expertise. But please, I think that please do not bet your house on this. This is so risky. But if you do have certain appetite, is to think about, can you maybe do hold some base coin that you believe in, and then certain more category or vertical focus because you have that expertise. That would be my suggestion.
Great. Well, we're at the end of our time. Unfortunately, we have several unanswered questions. So unfortunately, we won't be able to get to any more of them, but want to say thank you again to everyone, and a quick reminder about the Stanford program, the 2-week intensive venture capital unlocked program. If you are interested, we'll be following up with more information. I will also mention our diversity scholarship, which is an opportunity to participate in the program at a reduced tuition rate. You can learn more about that scholarship at education.500.com. And it really is pushing the envelope in terms of diversifying the investor landscape in Silicon Valley and around the world. So that's one of our core missions here at 500. And with that, thank you so much, Edith. That was fantastic. Definitely very informative. Thank you all of the participants, and hopefully we can review this when we send out the recorded version and answer more of your questions. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.